as baseball now comes front and center. Pitchers and catchers report for the Yankees today. They started coming in for the Mets yesterday. So it's a good way to start off the show with football in the rearview mirror and baseball clearly in the windshield. What is the deal with both of the New York teams? Well, let's take a look at the Mets first. The Mets, I believe, are better than the team that went to Game 6 of the NLCS last year. Does that get them that far and further this year? Only time will tell. There's questions on the Mets, but getting Juan Soto and then bringing back Pete Alonso, there's no way that you could say that this team is not better offensively. You essentially replaced Starling Marte with Juan Soto. Juan Soto had 41 home runs last year. Juan Soto is a generational type of hitter. He does great things for the Mets. He will do great things for the Mets. It was an important signing for them, and they did it. And I think they got better because of it. You've got a second year of Mark Vientos. You've got Pete Alonso with a little something to prove. Maybe there's a little less pressure after going through free agency for the first time. And then he knows if he opts out of this year's contract, which he will, that he does not have the albatross of the qualifying offer in him, which means that other teams will not have to worry about giving up a draft pick. And I think that that's a big thing. And I also think that's a big thing that the Players Union is going to have to get rid of, because it really does slow down free agency, especially when you put in codicils the way Scott Boras wants to of opting out. So if Pete Alonso signed a 4-year deal with the Blue Jays and then opt out after year one, the Blue Jays don't want to give up a draft pick for 1 year of a player. They'll give up a draft pick for 4 years of a player, but not for one. Anyway, we digress. So I like the Met lineup. Carlos Mendoza, who we're going to have on a little bit later on this week, he's the Met manager. He certainly showed that he could lead a team to great things as they made a strong comeback in the second half last year and got into the postseason. And then they did damage in the postseason. And as I said, came to within a couple of wins of going to the World Series. So this is a better offense. Now, what concerns me about the Mets? Their starting pitching concerns me. You know, Kodai Senga is a really, really good pitcher when he's healthy. Is he going to be healthy? And the Mets are going to have the 6-man rotation in order to try to keep him healthy. He wasn't healthy last year. That's a big deal. You've lost Luis Severino. You're asking Clay Holmes to become a starter. He's got the good stuff. He's got a great makeup. Can he become a starter? Frankie Montas? Big question mark. Sean Manaea had a great year, ran out of gas in the last game against the Dodgers. If he could recreate what he did last year, that's a strong number 2. Peterson lived up to his first-round status and actually had a very good year. But there's no dynamic, big-time starter in that starting rotation. It could be Senga, but is he going to stay healthy? And can you be a dynamic, big-time starter in a 6-man rotation? Because in a 6-man rotation, you're not going to get 32 starts. You're probably going to get about 28, 27 starts. So I don't think the Mets have the depth in the starting rotation, and their bullpen is also questionable. You have Edwin Diaz, which is very good. But leading up to Edwin Diaz, what do you have that makes you feel great? So I think the Mets are a good team. I think the Mets should make the playoffs. But in terms of being a dynamic, overwhelming team, I'm not sure. I think they drastically improved their offense, and the pitching is a question mark. But the reason why I will not go crazy about this is because if David Stearns has a strength, and he has many strengths as a GM, he knows how to patch together a rotation. He could have gone for long-term answers for that ace starter. He could have. He could have gone after Corbin Burns. He could have gone after Blake Snell. He could have gone after Max Fried. There are players out there he could have gone after, but you know what? He does not believe in giving long-term contracts to pitchers. And that's fine, as long as it works out. So what he patched together last year was good enough. And he's also really good at patching together a bullpen. So I'm not going to cast total doubt on the rotation and the bullpen. I'm just saying, looking at it, it's a concern of mine. The offense is not a concern of mine. It'll be interesting to see how they line it up, in what order they're going to come up. I think you have to have Lindor as the number 1 hitter because when they moved him to the leadoff spot, he became a different player. He was absolutely a force. And then whichever way you want to play with Soto and Alonso and Vientos, that's going to be your choice. Soto had always preferred to bat in the number 3 spot, but last year the Yankees had him in the number 2 spot, and he had his best year ever. But he also had Aaron Judge hitting behind him. So that's a little bit of a decision that Mendoza has to make. Does he want Soto 3rd, Alonso 4th, move somebody up to 2, somebody else up to 2? There's a lot of maneuverability there for Carlos Mendoza, how he wants to lay out this lineup. It's going to be intriguing and fun to watch how he does it. So, are the Mets better than last year? I don't know how you say they're not. When you add Juan Soto, even if you didn't do anything else, how are they not better than last year? Of course they're better than last year. But remember one other thing. They snuck into the playoffs last year. And they had to make a spirited run down the stretch. And then they got really hot in the postseason. The Alonso home run in Game 3 against Milwaukee, and then they knock off the Phillies, and then they go to 6 games against the Dodgers. But against the Dodgers, you could see how they were a little short with pitching. And then when Manaea ran out of gas and he was absolutely exhausted in that last game, they ended up losing. But you can't knock their season. No one expected them to go that far. But when you sign Soto, you expect to go further. And the thing that stands in the way for the Mets is you got a Philly team that added Luzardo. You got a Braves team that's going to get back Strider, who hardly pitched, and Acuna, who hardly played last year. They'll both probably come back in May. They lost Max Fried. They lost Charlie Morton. But a lot of people expect good things from the Braves. So there's 2 teams right there in the East. I think that the Nationals are going to be better, maybe approaching a 500 team. And the Marlins are going to be dreadful. Marlins did nothing. They subtracted. They did not add. They're an awful team. Awful. You got the Central Division where if you look at all the projections, a lot of people are expecting great things from the Cubs. And the Cubs still could sign Alex Bregman. Otherwise, they'll go with a rookie at third base. Milwaukee's going to be good, as it always is. And don't discount the Cincinnati Reds with Terry Francona at the helm. But I don't think that you're going to get a wild card out of the Central. I don't know which of those teams going to win. I say the Cubs will win the Central. I don't think any other team will get enough wins in order to get to a wild card. And then you got a loaded National League West. The Dodgers are projected at 103.5 wins over under. Amazing, right? Got the Dodgers. You got an improved Giants team. You got the Diamondbacks, who won 89 games last year and just missed the playoffs on the last game. And you got the Padres. So the Dodgers are going to win that division, but is one of the wild cards going to come out of that division? Are 2 going to come out of that division? That's the big question. So if 2 come out of the West, that means 1's going to come out of the East. And is that 1 going to be either the Phillies, the Braves, or the Mets? And one of those teams is going to win the division. That's some of what the Mets are up against. But if anybody's trying to tell you or sell you that the Mets are not a better team than last year, don't buy it. Of course they're better. They added one of the best players in baseball. How could they not be better? Of course they're better.